Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey peeps, today we're going to take a look at the crossover pack 4 for the DC Comics deck building game. This one is the Watchmen. Now, you might find it curious. There's actually been 3 other crossover packs, since the reason it's crossover pack 4, I guess you could have guessed that. But if you've been paying attention to the channel, I haven't reviewed them. I reviewed every other main set and even the Crisis packs for the DC Comics deck building game, but I never bothered with the other crossover packs. And given the fact that I'm one of the few YouTube reviewers that actually likes the DC Comics deck building game, that might be surprising. But the fact is, the other crossover packs are just characters and some new cards for the main deck. I mean, the Legion of Superheroes one, which was the last one, which I like Legion of Superheroes a lot, actually. But that had a new mechanism, the time travel mechanism, but I don't think the other ones did. I have them all, but they're just new characters and event main deck cards. They're not that exciting. I was actually thinking of doing them all at once in one review when I got the Watchmen pack. Then, to my surprise, I found out that the Watchmen pack definitely changes the game in a really drastic way. You have some new characters, and of course, they're all based off of the Watchmen. And of course, somewhere, Alan Moore is spitting up blood thinking about this game being produced. But nevertheless, and just like the bastardized new Watchmen comics that came out, was it last year, the year before, that they are basing this one on. All the artwork from this one, except for maybe a couple of pieces of art, are from the new Watchmen. So there is that, and there are the Watchmen character cards. You can play as Rorschach, you can be Dr. Manhattan, and those cards can be fully integrated into the base game. However, the rest of this pack is a brand new game mode that is a one versus all hidden role mode. One player, if you choose to play as this, and if you do, you have to throw the main deck cards for this set, which are kind of geared for this set. You really can't use most of them in a normal game, or you could, but it's kind of weird. I'll explain that later. But you use those cards, you use the special other game cards, which I'm going to show you in the overview, and one player is a secret mastermind, the other players are the loyal players. All the players nominally are working towards these challenge cards that are put out. Kind of think of the Crisis cards from the cooperative mode, which we will hopefully not speak that much of, from the Crisis packs. And you're trying to work through these challenges while at the same time the mastermind player is doing his or her absolute best to make sure the main deck of cards runs out. If you guys can all finish the challenges before the main deck of cards runs out, the good guys win the game, the mastermind loses. But if the mastermind gets the main deck of cards to run out before that happens, he or she will win the game alone. Let me go ahead and show you everything that comes in this set. Then we're going to come back and we'll cover that in more depth. Okay, I'm going to show you everything that's in the crossover pack for the Watchmen for the DC Comics deck building game. As you can see, there are new characters and new main deck cards, just like the other crossover packs. But then there's all of this stuff, and we're going to get to that, which is very different than the other crossover packs. So let's go ahead and start off with the characters. I will give you a warning here, is that I'm starting off with these just because these are what people are most familiar with, characters and main deck cards. But some of the abilities, maybe not necessarily on the characters, but on the event or the main deck cards are not going to make a ton of sense until I explain the new game mode. But let's go ahead and start with the characters first. These are all the iconic Watchmen characters, except that they have the artwork of the new rebooted Watchmen series that they did, which I didn't actually read. From what I understand, I didn't miss much. So we have the Silk Spectre here. Her ability is that each time you play a hero during your turn, you can look at the top card of your deck and you may discard it. The Comedian. You pay 1 less to buy attack cards. The first time you play a villain during each of your turns, you draw a card. You have Night Owl. Night Owl's ability says that after each time you play an equipment during your turn, you may put a card from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck, because he is basically like Batman after all. Ozymandias is pretty interesting. At the end of each of your turns, you draw an extra card, and then put a card from your hand on top of your deck. Let me scoot these down a bit so you can see the artwork more. Alright, good enough. And then you have, of course, the two that everybody likes the most in the series. You have Rorschach, which is once during each of your turns, you may discard a card from your hand to play the top card of another player's deck and then return it. And then, of course, you have Dr. Manhattan, who is the second time that you play a superpower during each of your turns, you may destroy a card in your hand. Note that it's the second time you play a superpower during each of your turns. All right, and then we're going to move on to the main deck cards. And again, these powers are going to seem kind of weird, but that's because of the main goal of the game, or the main goal of the new mode of the game, which we're going to talk about. So you have the Night Owl Mask, which is equipment for 4. It says you get +2 power, and you choose 2 players. Each player draws a card. Then you destroy the top 2 cards of the main deck. Sally Juspekzik, gain the top card of the main deck. If its cost is 4 or less, you repeat this process. If its cost is 6 or greater, you destroy it. The Rorschach Mask, you get +2 power, and if this is the first card you play this turn, each player discards that hand and draws 4 cards. New York City, ongoing, that's a location. During each of your turns, you may buy 1 card from the destroyed pile as if it were in the lineup, but if you do, you destroy the top card of the main deck. Are you seeing a theme here, a pattern emerging? The Owl Ship, +3 power, you destroy all non-hero cards in the lineup and then replace them. Hollis Mason is the same, but he's going to do it to all non-equipment cards in the lineup and then replace them. Then you have Reconstruction, and this is going to do it to all non-superpower cards in the lineup. Again, do you see a pattern? The Rioters is all non-villain cards in the lineup. But then we get to some different ones. Sorry, there you go. You have Moloch the Mystic, +3 power, reveal the top card of your deck, and you may destroy it. If you do, each other player destroys the top card of their deck. Duplication. You choose another card you have in play, play it twice. Each other player destroys a card with that name in their hand or discard pile. And then finally, the one that's going to make no sense until you learn the rules of the new mode, Disintegration. You may pay 15 power. If you do, you remove this card from the game, and then you either destroy a loyal superhero or a current challenge. So, okay, with that thought in mind, let's talk about the new mode of the game. This is a 1 versus all hidden role mode, where one player is an evil, villainous mastermind like Ozymandias, although, ironically, you may not be the mastermind if you are the Ozymandias character, but you're going to have these loyalty cards that you're going to deal out at the start of the game. Oh, and I will mention that if you choose to play with this mode, as of right now, you must play with the Watchmen cards in the main deck. You pick whatever main set you want. Could be Teen Titans, could be Forever Evil, could be Heroes Unite, could be the original. And then you'll shuffle in the Watchmen main deck cards that I just described before. But for right now, those are the only ones that sort of endorse this new game mode. But in any case, you're going to have loyalty cards. There's 4 of them that say you are loyal, which is that you want to contribute cards to the challenges and make sure the main deck doesn't run out of cards. However, of course, one of the cards is you are the secret mastermind. You will want to collect the cards needed for the public villainous machinations card, and if the main deck runs out and the lineup cannot be refilled, you win the game. So you're going to take the loyal mastermind card, and then depending on the number of players, take a number of loyalty cards that will bring you up to the number of players total in these total loyalty cards, and then you're going to shuffle them up, deal them out, so one player, and then look at them, and then put them underneath your superhero. Which means that one player is going to be the mastermind, the rest of the players are going to be loyal. But no one really knows who is who at the start. And it's actually very tough to get someone to explicitly reveal themselves as the mastermind. But we're going to get to that. So, challenges. You've heard that word mentioned a couple of times. This is the main thing that the loyal players are working against. You have 2 challenges of every level. Level 1, Level 2, and Level 3. You're going to shuffle, quote-unquote, the 2 challenges of each level, and then pick one at random, put the level 3 on the bottom without looking at it, put the level 2 that you choose on top of that, and then the level 1, you get it. And then you're going to reveal the level 1, and that's the first one that you're going to have to take care of. Now, each of the challenges they escalate in difficulty, but they all function the same way. They're going to have some nasty ongoing ability that affects the entire game, that affects everyone in the game, including the mastermind, because no one knows who the mastermind is yet. And then at the bottom, it has the cards you need to contribute in order to beat the challenge. And then in the bottom corner, after you contribute all the cards that you need is the power that you need, that one player has to spend to finally finish off the challenge. And these are tangentially based on the stuff from Watchmen, just the name Keen Act, for example. But ongoing ability here is that superhero abilities are blank. No one has their ability. In order to beat the challenge, during someone's turn, they can contribute as many cards as they want from their hand unless it says otherwise. A few of them do. So, for instance, this one says 3 heroes, 2 equipment, 4 superpowers, 2 villains. In order to have a shot at accumulating the power and destroying this card, everyone needs to work together, or at least one person has to work together to put cards onto the challenge. Now, even the Mastermind might want to do this to throw off suspicion, but also because one of these challenges, ongoing abilities, might be screwing up his plans. You know, that kind of thing might happen. But somehow or another, in order to get through this challenge, you have to come up with those cards. You physically take them from your hand, do not play them, do not use their abilities, and put them next to the card until you have everything you need. Then someone has to get, in this case, 9 power and destroy it. Just like defeating a supervillain, it goes away. Then at the end of that person's turn, you flip over the next one. You have rioting, which is during your turn, you may pay 2 power. If you do not, draw 1 fewer card at the end of your turn. And then you see there's different things here. Now, at this point, I'm going to stop and talk about what's going on while you're having to deal with these challenges. Now, as you're trying to proceed with these challenges, the game goes on as normal. You have your starting deck, your punches, your vulnerabilities. You have the main deck, which is made up of a main set plus the Watchmen cards. Then you're going to deal a lineup of 5 and buy cards as normal. Same as a regular DC Comics deck building game. However, here's a couple of important differences. The first is that if you do not buy a card from the lineup, which meaning kicks do not count, that's not the lineup, then you, at the end of your turn, you must add a card to the lineup. Now, if you do buy a card from the lineup, you still refill it as normal, but if something else destroys cards from the lineup for some reason, and meaning that no one bought anything from the lineup, you have to add an additional card. This can mean that the lineup swells past 5 cards, and that can continue to happen until someone finally buys something from the lineup. The reason for this is, well, because of that loyalty that I showed you for the Mastermind, which said that at the end of the game, he wins if the main deck runs out. So you're on a timer. You cannot just stall the game by not buying anything from the center row, because cards are still going to be added. And that's why all of those main deck cards that I showed you that destroy cards from the main deck are so dangerous. Some of them are very powerful, but usually it's the Mastermind that wants to grab them because it lets him or her, you know, really drill out the main line over and over and over again, and then constantly refill it and just burn through the main deck. So anyways, on to some more of the challenges, and you get on to level 2. Nixon's is that at the end of your turn, if you did not play an attack, add the top card of the main deck to the lineup. Here's where I'll tell you the other difference. In this game, attack cards affect everyone as normal. Even at the beginning, when no one knows whose loyalty is true, you still have to attack everybody with your attack cards. But when the Mastermind, if and when the Mastermind reveals himself, then attacks from the loyal players only affect the Mastermind, even if it would normally affect everybody. Then you have Cancer Scare. Each time a card with cost 6 or greater enters the lineup, attack, each player gains a weakness. Alien Invasion. These are the level 3s now, the really bad ones. Each time an attack enters the lineup or the destroyed pile, make that attack against all players. And then finally, the Nuclear Clock. This one is the most interesting. At the start of each player's turn, that player pulls a card from the lineup that has a cost of 3 or less. It puts it under this card. When there are 12 cards under it, the secret Mastermind gains them and places them into their hand, which at that point pretty much reveals them. And notice that the cards change too. You know, these are very difficult. You need to have 2 Watchmen cards from this set, 2 locations that can be from in play, 2 superpowers with cost 4 or greater, and 2 cards with cost 6 or greater. Notice that the cost is also escalating at the same time. So, you have to beat the 3 randomly chosen challenges. When all 3 of those are taken out, if there's still cards in the main deck, then the loyal heroes are going to win. If the main deck runs out at any time, the Mastermind is going to win. However, the Mastermind has another secret plot to pull off. These are Villainous Machinations and the Mastermind plots. The Villainous Machinations, you're going to choose one at random at the start of the game. There's 4 of them, and this is going to be public knowledge. But this only concerns whoever is the secret Mastermind. The secret Mastermind needs to, in one turn, contribute these exact cards next to the Villainous Machinations. And by doing this, he's going to, if he does this successfully, and he can only put cards there, again, in one turn, if it would be successful, at that point, he flips over his loyalty. Everyone knows who everyone is at that point. So in this particular case, and they all function the same, you move this one is move the heroes like pawns. All it is that's different about them is the cards you have to contribute. So all of them say that if the Secret Mastermind plays the following cards during a single turn, they add the Mastermind plot to the challenge area, and then you have the cards that you have to contribute. In this case, for 2 or 3 players, you have to add a 3-cost hero. For the others, it's 3 or less cost hero, 4 or greater cost villain, and so on and so forth. Now, what about those Mastermind plots? At the start of the game, in addition to your loyalty card, you're also going to randomly deal one of these out to everyone, and everyone's going to look at it and read it, even if they are not the Mastermind. This is just to give some more anonymity to the Mastermind, and also, they all concern... Their ability concerns a different type of card, so it lets the Mastermind work towards that during the course of the game. Now, in general, how these function is that these become a new challenge that all of the heroes have to deal with for the game. So this one says that Secret Mastermind ongoing, each time you play a superpower during your turn, destroy the top card of the main deck. So just like with the ongoing powers of the original challenges, this is going to affect you too. And every card is the same, but for a different type of card. So it could be superpower, equipment, hero, and so on. But again, each time you play a card of that type during your turn, destroy the top card of the main deck. And each of them has obnoxiously high power, going from 21 up to 25. Okay? Now, there's no other things that you need to contribute, just power, but it's really, really high. But the catch here, and what's going to help the heroes, is that when you attempt to beat this challenge, each other loyal player may add 1 random card from their hand to the fight. So that at least helps. You can't do that with the other challenges. But you need to beat, if this gets into play, you need to beat this challenge in addition to the other 3 challenges in order to win if you're a loyal player. And again, at this point, the Mastermind is definitely revealed, and attacks from the loyal players will only affect that person. So that's it. That is the new Mastermind mode, or Secret Role Hidden mode, whatever you want to call it, for the Watchmen crossover pack for the DC Comics deck building game. Let's get to my final thoughts. Okay, well, there's a couple of other things to go over in this set, and I will say this again. The Watchmen is a very hot topic among comic book fans, because a lot of people didn't like the movie very much. I actually liked the movie. I read the comic first. I love the comic. I love the graphic novel. It's amazing. And I actually liked the movie too. I thought it was maybe too faithful to the original, but I thought it was definitely worth seeing, beautifully shot, all these different things. Some people didn't like that it was made that way. The creator of the comic himself, Alan Moore, definitely doesn't like that DC has been using his property and doing more stuff with it. There's a lot of famous jokes. There was this big famous Simpsons joke about it too. And he definitely would not like that there is a DC Comics deck building game that is only, again, like any other DC Comics set, is a paste it on theme. Just happens to use the images of the characters. So you may totally hate that too. And I get it, because it is using the likenesses of these characters. I don't mind, again, maybe because everything is just pasted on anyways. And I'm only thinking about the game when I play anything with the DC Comics deck building game, and the high quality artwork that's on the cards, because they look good. So, if you can get over that, the characters that are in the set are all very interesting, and all of them can be thrown right into the other sets of the game. I didn't do like a full balancing to see if their power levels are appropriate, because again, the other cards in this set are supposed to be played together for the cooperative experience, or mostly cooperative experience, of the one versus all mode. But I still feel like all the cards are pretty good. I like Dr. Manhattan's power, play 2 superpowers, destroy a card from your hand. I like Ozymandias' power, draw a card, put one back on top of your deck. Could be pretty useful. So I think they all are neat, and I think they all integrate very well back into any other set that you want. Night Owl is like another version of Batman with equipment, so it's pretty neat. So that's fine. And if you only care about that, for the amount of money you'd spend for this, I think it's worth it to have more characters. There's tons of characters for DC Comics deck building game now. You will not want for variety, but still it's nice to have more. The main deck cards, technically, you could mix them into any other play mode that you want. The normal play mode, the crisis cooperative mode. However, they're so selectively useful. Now, some of them might actually be too powerful. So, for instance, the Dr. Manhattan, I think, duplication card No. That's not even as bad. The Moloch card, which says that you look at the top card of your deck. You may destroy it. If you do, every other player destroys the top card of their deck. In an actual competitive game, that can be devastating. So that's almost too good. But some of the other cards are good, but in a normal game, but wouldn't be selectively so. Like, destroy every card in the lineup that's not an equipment. Yeah, but in order to play that card that gives you 3 power, you need to do that secondary part of the card. Maybe you want to buy something that's out there. Maybe you can only afford it if you play the card that gives you 3 power. But then you have to destroy the card in the lineup. So those cards are problematic. They're primarily for this game mode. Because if the Mastermind gets them, it's going to be really tough from that point forward. Because they'll constantly be destroying the lineup and having to replace them. So, I don't know. Some of them will work. Some of them won't. You probably just want to leave these alone unless you play the Watchmen mode. So let's talk about that mode. I like it. It's not great, but it is better than the cooperative mode from the Crisis Packs. But that's a low bar, because the cooperative mode from the Crisis Packs was terrible, in my opinion. I know other people disagree with me. That's fine. I think they were terrible. So for me, it's a low bar. But this mode is more interesting. It has the same problem as those other modes in that it's too long, for sure. But at least now I feel like it's a little more interesting. The game still feels like it doesn't come to any abrupt halts. I thought that the challenges worked out better here, especially since it was much easier for everyone to contribute to it. Now you don't have to do okay, I'm going to contribute. Can everyone contribute this card? No, now I'm trying to recall how the Crisis cards works, but now it's just like, hey, I've got a villain I don't care about. I'm going to contribute to the challenge, and so on. And it's interesting to see who contributes, who doesn't. It might be very obvious who the Mastermind is. Now, a problem with this setup is that even if you deduce who the Mastermind is, and at some point it can become very obvious, because the Mastermind sometimes wants to contribute cards to the challenge, but not really. And then it becomes very easy to peg them out, especially if they start taking cards from the lineup that are just too good for him to pass up. The Watchmen cards that destroy cards in the lineup. You're like, hey, why did you take that? So, but then, even if you do that, it's really difficult to do anything about it afterwards. You're like, oh, he's the Mastermind. Let's not listen to anything he or she says. But what else can we do? Because until they buy their Villainous Machination card and then take their Mastermind plot and put it into play, they don't flip themselves over. So no one has a loyalty until that happens, which means attack cards still affect everybody, not just the Mastermind. And the Mastermind can do some nasty things, but even the Mastermind can't use that ultimate card that lets him kill another player. So that's kind of a problematic thing, and it's very, very difficult for the Mastermind to get his Villainous Machination to work, to put out that extra plot. Not that he needs to. This game can be very difficult for the other heroes. The villain can just make sure that the deck runs out as quickly as possible, and that's a perfectly valid way to win. I think that with experience, this mode becomes more weighted in favor of the loyal players, because the first time you play, you're just going to be like thinking of it in normal DC deck building games terms, trying to buy as many cards as you can from the lineup, buying cards that maybe aren't that good, but you're like, maybe I'll just contribute into the challenge. But in future plays, you play more conservatively. Only buy one card, and only if you really want it, because the card's going to come out anyways. Always contribute to the challenge. That is your primary focus. Do it as quickly and as many times as you can, even if you have to give up good cards, unless they're like insanely good cards. That's one thing we didn't learn enough in our first challenge, and we lost by the skin of our teeth, our first playthrough. So I think it actually is pretty evenly balanced in that regard, depending on the experience levels of the people. But if the Mastermind is really cutthroat and ruthless, they can get that main deck going down really, really quickly. But again, it's very difficult for them to get their secret plot into play. You need a very specific allotment of cards in your hand at the same time, the same turn, to get it to go. But appropriately enough, and I haven't seen this happen, by the way, but appropriately enough, that Mastermind plot is super difficult, so I don't blame them for making that so hard to get. So again, the problem with this mode is just that it is very long, and I wouldn't do this with new people ever. And I still think with all these different modes of play that they've offered for DC Comics deck building game, there hasn't been the one that has surpassed just the main competitive game. Which is a shame, because I like cooperative games, I like one versus all games, but this is only okay. It was fun for a lark. I'll probably play it again in the future some random time, but I still prefer the normal competitive game. But I'm going to give this a positive review because I like the characters. I like the thought of this. It's very interesting. You could probably tweak it if you wanted to make it shorter, to make it more interesting for maybe the masterminds to reveal themselves at a sooner point. And some of the challenges are really neat, like the nuclear clock and just those types of things are more interesting to me than anything in the Crisis packs. So this is definitely far and away better than those, and I know that other people are going to like it even more than I do. But for me, definitely the best of the crossover packs. Interesting game mode, not the best, but definitely worth it for the characters, if nothing else. That is the Watchmen crossover 4-pack for the DC Comics deck building game. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.